Hey guys, what's going on? I know it's been quite a bit of radio silence on this new build, and then I just went to an event, drifted it, and that's probably how you're seeing a lot of media. So I wanted to take some time to go through and walk through some of the changes to the car. Obviously the appearance, she's black now, gloss black, painted by my wife. Turned out really nice. I've been eyeing black for a while, and I'm honestly super stoked on how it turned out. Big thing everybody's been asking me are these flares, right? These over fenders, whatever you want to call them. They are from a company called Clinched Flares. They are the, I gotta pull it up. I forget exactly which style. They have several different styles. But it's basically, it's their universal flares from Clinched. I kind of just measured it, figured out what fit, and went ahead and bought them based on the fitment that I wanted for like the wheels. So they have different widths also, like how far out it comes from the car. Honestly, just kind of guessed and got lucky. So pretty happy with that. I'm also on 5/114.3 spacers now. So these wheels are 5/114.3, no longer 5/108, so I can run what everybody else runs in drifting, which is super helpful. And if anything ever happened to any of my wheels, I could just borrow somebody else's and I wouldn't be kind of like, out of being able to drive. So that's super useful, and honestly a big point in me, a point for me that I really wanted to get to with this car is to convert it over. I originally thought about like re-drilling the original hubs, trying to find a hub bearing that would fit and all this stuff, and then at the end of the day I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna see if I can find some high quality spacer adapters, and it actually ended up working out because it made the fitment of these wheels and like the fender flares also kind of helped me figure all that out since I was changing over to these wheels. So this is not the same engine that I had in it last year. This obviously it's hard to tell minus the intake. A lot of it's still the same. It's the same belt routing, all that kind of stuff. But this is a LS3. Technically it's an L92 out of like a Denali or an Escalade, but eBay L92 sent it off to my engine builder, and basically just started shipping in parts, and we were putting this thing together. So it's got ported heads, comp cam, it's got some high compression pistons, and we're still running on E85, so I'm hopeful that it's maybe in the 12-to-1 range on compression. Always wanted a high compression LS3. It feels really good. Also installed a new Holly. Last year I ran all HP tuners. This year I wanted to go full Holly. So we're running on a Holly ECU, and I mean, it basically tuned itself, which is super cool. I had never experienced that or played around with Hollies, so it seems to be really intuitive. And it's been a lot of fun learning it, honestly. I've enjoyed it. So I didn't really get a chance to dyno it before the event, so I just really let it self-tune as I drove it around the neighborhood, drove it to work a couple days, and it was pretty good. I did have to make some changes at the event, but overall, I mean, I was super happy with its self-tuning ability and just how easily it started and ran this thing. So a few things I'm going to change on this engine. One of them is going to be the PCV system. So I basically took the PCV system off of the 5.3 and put it on here. And it was not enough, so it was restricting. This engine was creating so much crankcase pressure that it needed somewhere to go, and I had all these little 3/8 lines like teed into each other, and they were going to this catch can over here, and it was just filling the catch can because basically it was not getting out of the engine fast enough, and it was just kind of over pressurizing the crankcase, and then it was just forcing itself out of places. So I ended up pushing oil out of my rear main seal. It was like filling this thing, like the engine was just not breathing in the crankcase the way it should. So at the event, I had a cap on this this oil fill thing, and basically it has a nipple on it for a crankcase breather. I just never hooked it up. So at the event, I was like, you know, okay, I did some other stuff, rerouted the lines, made them all individually go to the catch can. And then I also ran that just to go out to the ground, basically, to help breathe. And I finished my last few runs that way at the event, and I didn't seem to have any more crankcase issues. Man, I can't even say that. Also took some advice from Taylor Ray. He said to drill out the rear valve cover breather, which is right here, because it's, I guess, a really small size from the factory, and it was. He was correct. We drilled it out at the event, and I think that also helped. It was literally like a pinhole. Like, it looks like it's a 3/8 tube, but it's actually a pinhole inside of there. So it was really restricting. So we just did a lot of quick things at the event to try and make it better. But I really want to go through and kind of redo all this and make it look nice and also function a little bit better if I can. So I'm thinking about putting or getting new valve covers so that I can weld like some AN bungs on here, and then I can have like large -10, -12 lines going to a bigger catch can, because it's still, I don't believe it's enough. So that's one thing I'm kind of excited to work on, figure out. I kind of like those projects, so we'll see how that goes. I'll see if I can make some videos and show you guys what I do along through that. But really, along from the engine, the Holley, I'll show you my dash too. I'm really stoked on this dash. It makes, I don't know, it makes like my whole gauge cluster that I made last year like a joke, basically. And it's just so simple. Like, it's got GPS, it's got everything you could ever need. It's super customizable. Honestly, I'm in love with it. Wish I would have had it from the beginning, and apparently I'm hot because the fan is on. But yeah, so I just fitted it in the original gauge cluster. It's got a bunch of different screens. That's really the only thing that's changed there. It's really the only thing that's changed there. So new handbrake, pretty excited about this. Got this from Drift HQ. Forget what brand it is, but it feels super solid. It's really nice. Also changed the master cylinder size, went down to a 5/8 from a 3/4. Read up on, you know, different throws and basically, you know, what the e-brake handle is going to feel like if you have too big of a master, too small of a master, and then I just kind of pinpointed that I wanted that 5/8, and it felt really good at the event. I cannot complain. It locked every time, and no issues there. Let's see. Next thing I changed was I've got a proper fuel cell now. So good old fuel safe with the in-tank surge tank, lift pump, and surge pump. So all that is fully enclosed. It's really a cool setup. I'll have to show you a picture of it. Also got this Radium Engineering fuel filter with a cooler on it. I kind of want to mount this up nice. Like, I think I'm gonna do it over here. But this is just kind of what I slapped together to make it to this event. Like I said before, I was kind of rushing to get this thing done. I was rushing to get it done, so honestly just happy it worked the way it did. But now it's time to come back and make everything nice. Got a fuel level gauge. I never had a chance to get it hooked up right. I think I need to run a sensor ground to the ground. Right now I just have a chassis ground going to it, and it doesn't seem to be reading correctly, so I get to check that out and see what's up there. Let me raise this thing on the lift, and I'll show you what I did with the exhaust, because it is different. Oh, also got a new fan. I'm pretty stoked on this fan. So this is a Dodge Charger, like 2018 Police Interceptor fan. It's kind of hard to see, but it's really thin, like in terms of how deep it is, like going towards my water pump. And the coolest thing about it is brushless. So it pulls, like, I think I checked it with the amp meter at like 14 amps on startup, which if you've ever dealt with electric fans, some of them can pull some pretty wild amounts of amperage when you first turn it on. So for this thing to only pull like 14 or 13 amps and it be that big is like super awesome. And it's just been you know, really easy to figure out the wiring for, and you don't have to run like giant 6-gauge wires to like a Taurus fan or something, because those things pull like 40 amps, 50 amps on the startup, depending on how old they are and how worn out the brushed motor is. So that was a really cool find. Some friends of mine told me about that one. I recommend it to anybody who's building an LS engine or anything else. Yeah, excited for that. Haven't had any issues with it. Another thing, I've got a new radiator. So this is a LS specific radiator because it has the, so there's the steam ports on the heads. It actually has a fitting right here for the steam ports. So that's pretty cool. It also has a built-in, I guess it's made for like a transmission cooler, these lines right here, but I have it plumbed for my power steering, and it just saved like room basically in front of the radiator, but I didn't have to mount another cooler. I've got the oil cooler mounted in here. I used to have it mounted with like the AutoZone pull through tabs that go through the fins of the radiator, but I always hate what they do to your radiator. Like if you have like a heavy oil cooler, like they'll rub through the fins on the radiator as you go over bumps and everything, because they're never really that tight. So I made like a standalone bracket, and then that oil cooler is suspended between, you can see, it's suspended between the two, so it's not actually touching the other one, and they're kind of not heat soaking each other either. They can each have their own temperatures and not affect the other. Yeah, so let's raise this thing up. Everybody always asks me, what have you done for angle on this car? Obviously drifting, angle is huge. The more angle your car can have, the easier it is to save from spin outs, from just a slew of stuff. And honestly, it looks cooler when you drive with more angle. So all last year I drove with stock angle. I had a friend come over, Mike Fiak. When I had one of these racks apart, I have a spare rack, and I was just looking at it, trying to figure out what I could do. And he helped me figure out that basically with some rack spacers, I could get a whole lot more out of the steering angle. So I machined some rack spacers for this rack, and I'm honestly super happy with what it gave me in terms of angle. I don't know how many in degrees more it actually is, but I got enough that the tie rod runs into the lower arm now. You can see it's hitting there. Still have good clearance over here. Don't mind this. This was part of my PCV at track solution. Yeah, like basically, if this was a straight tie rod, I might even be able to get a little bit more. I'm not sure if it's actually bottoming out in the rack or if it's bottoming out because it's hitting that. My guess is it's hitting this because it's in it pretty good. So yeah, pretty decent amount of angle. Let's see if I can get a cool angle shot like that. So that's to the right, and then the same thing, you'll see that tie rod run into the lower arm when I turn to the left too. So that's kind of exciting that now, if I were to get a straight tie rod, basically just maybe get something from McMaster Car, spin the threads in, put a rod in on the side for the knuckle, that I can maybe get a few more degrees of angle also. So, I've got good clearance in here. It doesn't look like I'm going to run into anything. So that's really just what I'm going to play around with for now, until I figure out something that's maybe a little bit more robust and changing the lower arms, knuckles, whatever. But honestly, I'm not mad about it. The angle this thing has is good enough for me right now. Another thing I'd really like to do is upgrade this front sway bar. I'm not sure if there's any options like aftermarket, but I'm thinking about putting like a sprint car oval track, like a brink style bar in, basically a roll bar with like two flat blades that come off of it, that attach to the lower arms. I just want to have like a little bit more adjustable mechanical grip in the car, rather than just playing around with tire pressures all the time. So I think if I had a super thick front sway bar, honestly the car just might handle a little bit better overall. And then if I want more grip, I can dial it in that way. I've also thought about doing adjustable sway bar ends and leaving the stock sway bar. We'll just see how the money comes and what I end up deciding to do. Because if I can get like a Heim style where I crank down on these, it's kind of going to do the same thing, but at the end of the day, the bar is still only so stiff, so it may not make that big of a difference. Anyways, onto the exhaust. So what is that? Okay, so this is also the first time I've like looked at this thing since the event from the underside. I don't know what that stuff is. I'll have to check it out. But basically, 1 7/8 headers, long tubes. Had to do a little dance to make these fit. I basically bought these for like, it's like a Fox Body Mustang pull-off set from Holly. And I ended up having to cut these things up all the way and start over. So it was like basically a week on each header to make them fit, make them go past the steering rack. I've got pretty dang good clearance now. I don't know if you can see that. I stick my hand in between the header and the steering knuckle now. If you guys remember, maybe last year I was having some issues where that was rubbing the header. No longer an issue now, so that's cool. So I did, so it's 1 7/8 to 3-inch collector to like a flex joint to 3-inch to another collector, and then, or merge, whatever you want to call it, and then to 4-inch, Big Daddy 4-inch with a diesel resonator / muffler to try and keep this thing a little bit quieter, and it did not help. It's still loud. It's loud as hell. Which I like. It's kind of cool, but at the same time, I have to wear earplugs when I'm driving this thing, and that's probably a little excessive. So that's really the only changes. I'm gonna figure out where all this oil is coming from. There's oil over here, oil over there. Figure out my leaks, clean the car up, and see what's next on the horizon for events. That's really what I got going on. But I didn't want to keep you guys in the dark. I know there's been a lot of questions on, hey, like, what have you done to the car? Some people even thought this was a new car. Not a new car, same Lincoln. Let's call it the LS squared V2. LS3, Holly Terminator, proper fuel cell, and starting to work out some angle. Pretty excited. We'll see where this build goes, guys. I'm still in love with this car. I love the feedback I get from it. Everybody seems to love it. I love it. I love looking at it. So I'm excited. Let's take the chassis as far as we can. Catch you guys later.